Good afternoon. My name is Ian Pryor. I'm a Loudoun County parent, and I'm here with Loudoun Parents for Education. Today, we're going to talk about the need for change in the Loudoun County School Board. These are parents that you're going to hear from. This is a nonpartisan group. You're going to hear from everyday parents that want to see change. You're going to hear from Cheryl Onderchain, Paul Chen, Jessica Mendez, and Darius Hess. And then I'll come back and finish it off. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Cheryl Onderchain, and I'm a single working mother and a Loudoun County parent. I've been one of the leaders of a coalition of concerned parents who've been working since last summer to lobby the school board to come up with a plan to return all students to the classroom. When we started this effort in August, never in a million years could I have imagined that advocating for my daughter's right to a full-time, in-person education would land me on a blacklist. Yes, I have been identified as a target by the group Anti-Racist Parents of Loudoun County. This group alarmingly includes not just parents, but current and former teachers, a County Board of Supervisors member, the Loudoun prosecutor, and several school board members. At what point did our school board members go from serving residents to targeting them? Compiling lists of tax-paying citizens and parents fighting for their children's rights, not to mention exercising their First Amendment rights, is in a very scary territory. While I have filed a police report and I know there's an active investigation into this group's activities, I can't help but wonder if I will have a rock thrown through my window because I spoke out for what is right, because I challenged the school board. More concerning to me is, because a member of this group named me and my employer, will my career somehow be negatively impacted? And will my children be targeted when they go back to school? Where does this end? This is cancel culture. When did advocating for your children to be in school full-time become racist? When this school board was elected in 2019, it was before a pandemic. It was before a massive shift in how and what our children were taught. And those issues have come up. The school board has shown itself to be largely incompetent. But now we've seen they're also joining groups that take sides against parents and students, egged on by one school board member in a private group, not compliant with open meeting laws that includes other school board members, all in the name of teaching intolerance. It's clearly time that we take back the power we've delegated to members of this school board and begin the process to recall the school board members that were in this group. Join us, please. Take power back for our children and sign up to help or donate at lcpsparents.com.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming out to report on this critical matter that truly impacts so many parents and children in Loudoun County. My name is Paul Chen, and I'm the father of a high school senior and a freshman. Throughout this COVID pandemic, I've kept to myself about the decisions that have been made trying to believe that the actions by this school board would be in the best interest of safety and education. Well, after nearly 14 months, I can no longer remain silent. What I and so many other families have witnessed is criminal. My son will have missed out on what was supposed to be his most memorable year of his high school experience, his senior year. My daughter has yet to set foot into an academic classroom and participate in the most exciting transition of her young life. More importantly, they've lost their motivation to complete schoolwork due to the inadequate learning circumstances and have been deprived of the academic experience that will allow them to remain competitive with other students nationwide. This summer, I will have to get a private tutor to ensure that my daughter really learned and absorbed her Algebra 2 trig material. Fortunately, I'm in a position to do that. But what about the child that isn't, that's parent can't afford it because they lost their job? I'm not faulting the teachers, but I see these kids struggling every day to learn. In some cases, trying to teach themselves, and that's just not fair. or should I say equitable. In the beginning, I could understand the rationale to close the schools, but after witnessing so many other states open safely, and including our own private schools here in Virginia, it became evident that there were other nefarious reasons that they wanted to keep the schools closed. Loudoun is making headlines nationwide for all the wrong reasons. The canceling of Dr. Seuss, critical race theory, none of which makes any sense to any rational, common sense person. But now I've learned that some school board members and teachers are creating blacklists to cancel out parents and other teachers for exercising their First Amendment rights, pleading with them to open the schools. I ask you, where's this county going? Back to the 50s and McCarthyism? I served this great nation for 7.5 years as a naval officer and swore an oath to defend our nation against enemies, foreign and domestic. Never in my life would I believe that the school board would become the latter. This unconscionable insanity needs to end now, and school board or any school board or teacher that is blacklisting a parent or any other teacher needs to be held accountable immediately. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Mendez, and I have 2 daughters in a Loudoun County elementary school. I believe that we need to recall 6 school board members who have violated the responsibilities of their elected positions and destroyed the trust of the community they serve. I was appalled when I learned that good friends of mine had been put on a blacklist created by members of a private Facebook group called Anti-Racist Parents of Loudoun County. Then I learned about the illegal activities these members intended to carry out, and I was even more outraged and concerned. I obtained a copy of the list and felt a duty to notify all the parents who had been added to it. I began contacting them and discovered that the majority of the parents named were members of groups dedicated to the reopening of our schools. Why would parents with concerns about getting our children back in school be named on a blacklist created by so-called anti-racist parents? One member of this secret group wrote, "This is the clear nexus between the Open Schools Now movement and racism here in Loudoun. I'm not saying every parent pushing to open schools is racist, but there's a lot of overlap." Another member wrote, "Many of these names are not a surprise since they regularly post in the LCPS Open group." I asked a friend if she would speak at this conference today, but she declined because her husband is a Loudoun County teacher and she's worried about the backlash and what that would mean for him and her family. That makes me so upset to hear from her and parents I've contacted about the list that they're scared and concerned about speaking up for fear of retaliation. The parents on the list spoke up about reopening schools. They spoke up about admission standards being lowered. They spoke up about the content of classroom libraries. They spoke up about the need for a middle ground in constructing a comprehensive equity plan. They even spoke up about First Amendment concerns. Every parent, every American, should be able to speak freely and without fear of being targeted. It's not just a right, it's a duty to our children, and it's a duty to those parents and Americans who can't. My dad is a retired Air Force pilot, and my husband, a Marine who served 5 tours in combat zones, taught me all about duty. Since my husband and I both work, we hired a nanny to assist our girls with distance learning, an unexpected expense that we thought would be temporary. Our nanny is a single mom of 2 school-age children of her own. I asked Claudia if she would speak today, but she declined because she's afraid of public speaking. It's kind of terrifying. I asked her what she would do or what she would want to say so I could deliver her message, so that I could speak for her. Claudia would have said that there's a large Latino population in Sterling that live paycheck to paycheck and count on schools being open. She told me story after heartbreaking story of parents who need schools to be open but can't take off work in order to attend school board meetings and are too afraid to speak up because of concerns about their immigration status. Most don't even believe they have a say. Many aren't able to take advantage of the free school lunches because the children are not being watched at their homes and the caregiver can't leave to go get the meals. The point is, there are students who need extra help and are falling further behind. That should be the school board's focus. The children's education and getting them back into the classroom. The school board members should not be members of groups who make lists of parents they believe to be their enemies and call for harassment, hacking, intimidation, infiltration, and other illegal actions. History is all too clear about what happens when groups make lists like this. Lists of Jews, communists, Christians, Japanese. This is why Loudoun Parents for Education is calling for a recall of the 6 board members who were members of this group. Please support us by going to lcpsparents.com. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Darius Hess. I have 2 kids in the LCPS. Last summer when Kay, Cheryl, Brandon, and others began working with a focus on getting our kids back in school, I wonder if they thought we would be here in late March still talking about all of this. Many parents in our county wanted their kids back in school last fall when they saw others around the country doing it and doing it safely. So some stood up and started to lead. While we are not as far along as we would like, we thank these parents who have worked tirelessly on this. I really don't think we would be in hybrid right now without the constant pressure they have applied and the information they have shared with so many parents around the country, the county. And we must still keep the pressure on to ensure we are back in school 5 days per week as soon as possible, and that we hold this school board accountable in that mission. If you have been following since last summer, you know that this group of parents wanted what is best for all kids in Loudoun County. They have never focused on Republican or Democrat. It has always been about what is best for this community and these kids. They have spoken at every school board meeting. They have sent emails. They have tried working with local politicians and the governor's office. They have done it the way we are supposed to do it, by using their First Amendment rights and getting involved. What I have concluded is that this school board failed us. Perhaps that is unfair, but when it mattered most, the school board's only priority should have been getting these kids in school as soon as possible. They should have been laser focused on that goal. They should have been asking, how did they do it in Florida or Texas? What worked for them? What didn't work? How can we leverage what they learned? I think it could have been done here. We should have been back in school last fall. Some of us believe the board has invested too much time in the progressive politics of the day and not enough time ensuring the kids are getting a solid classical education, particularly when the kids are learning through a Chromebook computer, which is challenging. And then over the last week or so, we began to see what is happening too often these days. Some Loudoun residents who approve of the board's political wanderings started attacking, and it got personal. This is not necessary. It is not the way we should be talking to each other if we have a disagreement, especially when our kids are watching. They hear and see what is happening. Regardless of how you voted last November, if you are frustrated with this board and its responsiveness to this crisis, keep that in mind for the next election. If you feel the governor could have done more to force the situation with getting schools open, we have an election on the horizon, and you should do your research on the candidates and where they stand on the issue of getting schools back to normal operation. With Tony Fauci and Rochelle Walensky continuing to talk about risks, possible lockdowns again, the virus variants, and double masking, you should be wary of what lies ahead. The politics of getting our schools opened and functioning the way we want them to is an issue that is not yet resolved. Get involved and stay involved. It's not too late. We have a terrific community here, and we deserve a terrific school system. We are the Loudoun Parents for Education. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ian Pryor, and most importantly, I'm a Loudoun County parent. But I'm also a lawyer, and I am the former Principal Deputy Director of Public Affairs for the United States Department of Justice. So in that role, that's allowed me several opportunities to speak on issues about law enforcement and the Constitution. And I always try and do so in a substantive and measured way. This past fall, I attended my first, and up until now only, school board meeting. I spoke about Loudoun County Public Schools' proposed code of conduct, which would subject teachers to discipline for publicly or privately expressing concerns about LCPS's use of critical race theory concepts in training staff and developing curriculum. My expressed concerns were about the First Amendment violations of that policy. Later, I wrote an op-ed piece in the Federalist including those concerns, and also highlighted the nearly $500,000 of taxpayer money LCPS paid a California critical race theory consultant to help reshape Loudoun County Public Schools. Last Saturday, I learned from a reporter that I had been put on a list in a private Facebook group and that was looking to expose people and hack their websites for speaking out on, among other things, critical race theory. Specifically, my name was put on the list for speaking at the school board meeting on First Amendment concerns, and again, by a neighbor for an op-ed I wrote in the Federalist. Now, this list should concern everyone. The activities discussed there involve potential illegal violations of Virginia criminal solicitation law, federal computer fraud law, and even Reconstruction-era civil rights law. But it is equally concerning that 6 out of 9 board members and the Loudoun County attorney are members of this private group, with one such board member actively encouraging some of this behavior. Only one put out a statement on the making of this list, in which the group was a part. And according to the school board member Beth Bartz, silence is complicity. Well, their silence speaks volumes. I would add that in addition to failing to take a strong stand for the parents that were targeted, there's a very serious question as to whether the participating board members violated Virginia's open meeting laws by participating in this group in the first place. Now, I don't want to focus on this because there's other forums and other times for this discussion. I do want to take a minute to address the controversial topics that put many, but not all of us, on this list. Critical race theory. It's a school of thought that our institution, laws, cultural norms, and languages are all systemically biased. It is therefore no longer acceptable to strive for policies that promote equality, where everyone can compete on an even playing field. Instead, we must promote equity, which promotes policies that guarantee not the same opportunities, but the same results. We see these concepts put into action in schools. They are implementing lessons based on this. They are removing merit-based testing for gifted programs. We see it in changes to discipline policies, and we see it in the removal of certain books and subjects, like algebra, from the curriculum. And now we've learned that school board member Beth Bartz is going to be seeking to censure another school board member for exercising his First Amendment rights to speak out on these matters and represent the community. Bear with me for a second. But the list created by the Anti-Racist of Loudoun County private Facebook group is not limited to targeting those who support a colorblind meritocracy in our schools. They have also decided to target parents simply for wanting to reopen the schools. And really, the writing was on the wall that these individuals would start using the term equity to litigate the push against reopening schools. In fact, here is what one of Loudoun County's principals posted on social media in February. Quote, Pushing for children to be back in inequitable schools in the name of equity, data shows the families pushing for reopening are not the marginalized groups people claim are the reason for reopening. Again, that's a principle. So all told, we have a private Facebook group with 6 board members created in the name of equity and tolerance that is blacklisting parents for speaking out about politicizing our schools and trying to reopen our schools. Now in 2019, when the school board election was held, the pandemic and curriculum issues that we are talking about were not a major point of discussion, but they clearly have become so. And in fact, add in the fact that 6 of the 9 school board members were part of this group, there's really only one option: a campaign to recall those 6 school board members. A campaign that Loudoun Parents for Education begins today. A campaign to recall them and have a new election. We will put these issues to the people in a civil and productive way and let them decide what kind of school board they want. We will make Loudoun County a laboratory of democracy to inspire parents across the country. But we're going to need a lot of help, and you can start by signing up at lcpsparents.com. So in closing, clearly here, people in Loudoun County disagree on several issues. I have my opinions, which I have shared, and there are others who would disagree with me, and that is okay. It's actually pretty great. Disagreement and debate through civil means is the way to progress in this country. Unfortunately, too many on either side of these debates have chosen to take the path of righteous anger to try and force their views on others, no matter the cost. Too many people choose to seek and destroy on social media than to have neighborly conversations on tough issues in an effort to move someone even 1% closer to their perspective. We have no tolerance for threats, no tolerance for hate, no tolerance for incivility. We will never get anywhere with that. And look, I'm sure that the anti-racists of Loudoun County will be aflutter today in their Facebook group, and they'll be dismissive of what I say because I'm a Republican. And they'll reach into their reactionary smear glossary to label me and others. Well, here's a point for them. I wasn't always a Republican. And as an independent, I tended not to vote for the policy, but to vote for the person. That's why in 2006, I voted for Deval Patrick as governor of Massachusetts, the first black governor of Massachusetts. And in 2008, I voted for Barack Obama, the first black president of the United States. The fact is, this is not about Republican and Democrat. It's not about man or woman, black or white, gay or straight. This is about our children and who we choose to delegate power to them for their education. An education that will shape them for their entire lives and provide them the opportunities we and they dream about. It is time for people to unite in a nonpartisan way. This is not a fight for a political party. This is not a fight for a policy. This is a fight for our children and the education that will make them the critical thinkers that will allow them to succeed. It is a fight for the future. And I ask you to join us, because it's a fight we're going to win. Thank you.